The crystal halls of Zarian Prime sparkled under 3 purple suns. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in curved rows, their voices creating a low hum of different languages. Ambassador Zeftai of the Velkari people stood at the center. Podium, his tall blue form casting long shadows on the polished floor. Zeftai had lived for over 300 years. He had seen many young species take their first steps into space. Most followed predictable patterns. They built simple ships, established colonies, and slowly learned the rules of galactic society. But the humans were different. Council members. Zeftai began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I bring urgent news about the species from the 3rd planet of System Sol. The humans have made contact with our scouts, and what we observed concerns me greatly. General Thaxmer of the Drakmori Empire shifted in his metal chair. His gray skin showed scars from many battles, and his 4 arms were crossed in obvious boredom. The Drakmori had conquered 47 star systems. They were not impressed by warnings about primitive species. What could possibly concern you about such a young race? Thaxmer asked, his voice rough like grinding stone. Our intelligence shows they barely have faster-than-light travel. They use crude fusion engines and simple laser weapons. Zeftai's large eyes focused on the Drakmori general. That is exactly what worries me. 3 months ago, Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Intrepid encountered one of our patrol ships near the Centauri system. The Velkari ambassador activated a holographic display. It showed the meeting between the 2 ships. The human vessel looked small and basic compared to the sleek Velkari craft. But something in the recording made several council members lean forward. Watch Morrison's behavior during first contact, Zeftai said. Notice how he positions his ship. See how his eyes move during our conversation. This human is not just making friendly contact. He is studying us. In the recording, Captain Morrison smiled and spoke politely. He asked about Velkari culture and expressed interest in peaceful relations. But his eyes constantly moved, taking in every detail of the alien ship. When the Velkari captain showed him their navigation system, Morrison asked careful questions. That seemed innocent, but revealed deep understanding of advanced technology. The human captain spent exactly 47 minutes with our patrol leader, Zeftai continued. In that time, he learned more about our shield technology than most species discover in years of formal exchange programs. When our ships parted, Morrison's vessel changed course and headed directly to a system we had mentioned only briefly. Counselor Yuthara of the peaceful Andrian Federation spoke up. Her green skin shimmered as she moved. Perhaps this Morrison was simply curious. Many young species show eagerness to explore. I thought the same thing, Zeftai replied. So I studied their history. Humans have been fighting wars on their home planet for thousands of years. But these are not simple battles between tribes. They show remarkable ability to adapt there. Tactics learned from defeats and turn disadvantages into strengths. The hologram changed to show images from Earth's history. Battles where smaller human armies defeated larger ones through clever planning. Technologies that humans had developed by studying and improving on captured enemy equipment. Cities that had been destroyed, but rebuilt stronger than before. Look at their Second World War, Zeftai said. One human nation developed flying, bombs that could cross oceans. Another nation captured one of these weapons, studied it for 3 months, and built an improved version. They added guidance systems the original designers had never imagined. General Thaxmer laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Ancient history. What does this have to do with space warfare? Everything, Zeftai answered quietly. Because humans do not just fight to win battles. They fight to understand their enemies so completely that future battles become unnecessary. And they do this very, very quickly. The ambassador showed more recent data. Human colonies had been established in 12 systems over the past 50 years. Each colony specialized in different research areas. Some focused on agriculture and terraforming. Others developed new materials and manufacturing techniques. But several colonies were clearly military research stations, disguised as civilian settlements. The colony at New Denver appears to be a farming world, SciFi explained. But our long-range sensors detect energy signatures consistent with weapons testing. The humans are not just expanding peacefully. They are preparing for war. Vaxmer stood up, his forearms spreading wide. Let them prepare. The Drakmori Empire has destroyed species far more advanced than these humans. We have weapons that can crack planets and shields that have never been broken. If these humans become a problem, we will handle them like all the others. Several council members nodded in agreement. The Drakmori military was legendary throughout the galaxy. Their gray ships brought fear to any system they entered. Entire civilizations had surrendered rather than face Drakmori battle fleets. But SciFi did not sit down. General, may I ask how your empire typically conducts its conquests? Simple, Vaxmer replied proudly. We send a battle fleet to demand surrender. Most species submit immediately when they see our firepower. Those who resist are destroyed quickly. We have perfected this process over centuries. And what happens when you encounter a species that studies your tactics during that first battle? A species that learns from defeat and adapts its defenses. Specifically to counter your weapons? Vaxmer's expression darkened. No species has ever done such a thing. Fear paralyzes them, or death ends their resistance. The humans are different, SciFi said firmly. I have watched Captain Morrison's recordings dozens of times. When he saw our patrol ship's weapons, he did not show fear or wonder. He showed the expression of an engineer solving a technical problem. This human was already thinking about how to build something better. The chamber fell quiet. Ambassador SciFi looked around at the assembled representatives. Many were from species that had once been young and expansionist themselves. They remembered the lessons learned through painful experience. I am not saying humans are invincible, SciFi continued. I am saying they are unpredictable in ways that make standard conquest impossible. The Drakmori Empire succeeds because it follows proven patterns against predictable enemies. Humans will not be predictable. Counselor Ytharer raised a delicate hand. What do you propose the council should do? Establish formal diplomatic relations immediately, SciFi answered. Bring them into galactic society as partners, not subjects. Give them reasons to remain peaceful. Because if someone provokes them into war, I believe the results will surprise everyone. General Vaxmer gathered his metal armor and prepared to leave. The Drakmori Empire does not negotiate with primitives. If humans enter our territory or threaten our expansion, they will learn what happens to species that defy us. This council wastes time with impossible warnings. As the Drakmori delegation walked out, SciFi felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. He had delivered his warning as clearly as possible. The ancient Velkari archives contained records of 3 previous species that had shown similar patterns of rapid adaptation and tactical innovation. All 3 had eventually become galactic powers that reshaped interstellar politics for centuries. First, each had been forced to prove their capabilities against those who underestimated them. SciFi hoped this time would be different. Deep in his heart, he feared it would not be. 6 months had passed since the council meeting on Zarion Prime. General Vaxmer stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching 12 Drakmori warships move through space toward the human colony of New Denver. The gray vessels cut through the darkness like metal sharks, their weapons charged and ready. Target acquired, General, reported Captain Vexino from the tactical station. The human colony appears lightly defended. 3 small patrol ships and 1 orbital platform. They should surrender within minutes. Thaxmer smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. This would be another easy conquest to add to the Drakmori Empire's long list of victories. Intelligence reports suggested New Denver was a simple farming world with barely 30,000 inhabitants. Perfect for testing human resolve without wasting too much time. On the surface of New Denver, Commander Steve Blake received the alert in his small command center. The orbital sensors had detected the approaching fleet while it was still 3 hours away. Blake was a veteran of Earth's colonial defense forces, but he had never faced anything like this. 12 ships, reported Lieutenant Carl Stone from the sensor station. They're big, Commander. Our 3 patrol boats won't last 5 minutes against that firepower. Blake nodded calmly. Send a message to the incoming fleet. Tell them we're willing to discuss terms if they want to talk. Meanwhile, in her laboratory complex beneath New Denver's main agricultural dome, Dr. Amy Rodriguez worked frantically at her computer terminal. The lab looked like a plant research facility, with rows of crops growing under artificial lights. But hidden behind false walls were experimental weapon systems that Earth's military had been testing for 2 years. How long until they arrive? She asked her assistant, Dr. Kevin Hart. 2 hours and 40 minutes, Hart replied, sweat beading on his forehead. Are you sure this will work? Rodriguez's fingers flew across the keyboard, activating systems that had been disguised as farming equipment. It has to work. We only get one chance to surprise them. Above them, the Drakmori fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Denver system. General Thaxmer immediately broadcast his standard demand for surrender. Primitive humans, his voice boomed across all communication channels. You are now subjects of the Drakmori Empire. Surrender all military assets and prepare for occupation. You have 30 minutes to comply. Commander Blake responded with practiced calm. General Thaxmer, this is Commander Blake of New Denver Colonial Defense. We appreciate your visit, but we'd like to discuss the terms of any agreement. Perhaps we could meet and talk about mutual benefits? Thaxmer growled in annoyance. Most species begged for mercy or attacked immediately. This human was trying to negotiate like an equal. There are no terms to discuss. Submit or be destroyed. I understand your position, Blake replied smoothly. But surely a military leader of your experience knows that occupation works better when the local population cooperates willingly. May I suggest a brief meeting to discuss how we can make this transition smooth for everyone? The Drakmori general's 4 hands clenched into fists. This human was stalling for time, but for what? The colony had no significant defenses, and no reinforcements could arrive for days. You have 15 minutes to decide. Then we begin bombardment, Blake's calm voice continued. 15 minutes seems reasonable. I'll need to consult with our civilian leadership. In the meantime, would you mind if I ask about Drakmori culture? Our scientists are very interested in learning about your technology. For the next 10 minutes, Blake asked polite questions about Drakmori weapons, shield systems, and battle tactics. General Thaxmer found himself answering some of them, partly from pride and partly from confusion. Why was this human asking? About military technology when his world was about to be conquered? Below ground, Doctor. Rodriguez smiled as she listened to the conversation. Each answer gave her more data about the Drakmori fleet's capabilities. The experimental AI systems in her lab were analyzing every word, every energy reading from the alien ships. Kevin, activate the orbital platform's adaptive shields, she ordered, and prep the missile systems. Tell them to wait for my signal. The 15 minutes ended. General Thaxmer's patience was gone. Time is up, human. Prepare to witness Drakmori power. The lead Drakmori ship fired its main weapon at New Denver's orbital platform. The energy beam struck the platform's shields with tremendous force. But instead of overwhelming the defenses, something unexpected happened. The shields began to change color and frequency, adapting to match the incoming energy pattern. "What is this?" Thaxmer demanded. "How are they modifying their shields?" His weapons officer, Lieutenant Korthak, stared at his instruments in confusion. "The shield frequency is shifting to match our weapon output. It's like they're learning from our attack." The truth was even more impressive. Dr. Rodriguez had spent months analyzing fragments of alien technology recovered from various first contact incidents. Human engineers had reverse-engineered the basic principles of energy shields and improved them with Earth's advanced computer systems. The platform's AI could adapt its defenses in real time. Commander Blake's 3 patrol ships launched their attack. The missiles they fired looked standard, but each one carried a small AI brain that could think and adapt during flight. As the Drakmori point defense systems tried to shoot them down, the missiles changed their approach patterns, learning from each failed attempt. "Impossible," breathed Captain Vexino. "Their weapons are evolving during the battle." The first missile struck a Drakmori cruiser, penetrating shields that should have been impenetrable. The explosion sent shockwaves through the alien fleet as more adaptive missiles found their targets. General Thaxmer ordered his ships to change tactics, but the humans seemed to anticipate every move. When the Drakmori tried to jam communication signals, the human ships switched to quantum entanglement links. When they attempted to target the planet's surface, hidden defense platforms rose from fake agricultural fields. Dr. Rodriguez watched the battle from her underground command center. The experimental weapons were performing even better than expected. Human technology might be newer than alien tech, but it was designed by a species that had been perfecting warfare for thousands of years. "Commander Blake," she called through the comm system, "the orbital platform is holding steady. Enemy ships are showing significant damage. Above them, the space battle continued. 3 Drakmori vessels had been destroyed, and 5 more were badly damaged. The remaining ships found themselves fighting an enemy that learned from every exchange of fire. "General," Captain Vexenal reported with growing panic, "we're losing ships to an inferior force. Their technology is adapting faster than we can counter it." Thaxmer stared at the tactical display in disbelief. This was supposed to be a simple conquest. Instead, his fleet was being systematically destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist and tactics that made no sense. "All ships retreat to safe distance," he ordered reluctantly. "We need to regroup and analyze the situation." As the surviving Drakmori ships pulled back, Commander Blake opened a communication channel. "General Thaxmer, we're still willing to discuss terms if you'd like to talk. Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution to this misunderstanding." The Drakmori general's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mixture of rage and confusion. "This is not over, human. You have won one battle, but the Empire has resources you cannot imagine." "We understand," Blake replied politely. "We'll be here when you're ready to negotiate." The transmission ended. General Thaxmer stared at the retreating image of New Denver, a simple farming colony that had just defeated a Drakmori battle fleet. In 3 hours of combat, he had lost 8 ships to an enemy that wasn't supposed to exist. For the first time in his military career, Thaxmer began to wonder if the Velkari ambassador's warning had been more than just nervous speculation. Down in her laboratory, Dr. Rodriguez saved all the battle data to quantum storage devices. The information would be transmitted to Earth's military research stations within hours. By the time the Drakmori returned with a larger fleet, every human colony would know exactly how to defeat them. The first test was complete. Humanity had proven that Drakmori tactics worked only against predictable enemies. And humans were anything but predictable. The defeat at New Denver sent shockwaves through the Drakmori Empire. General Thaxmer sat in the high command chamber on the military world of Draxos Prime, surrounded by his war council. The massive holographic display showed the humiliating battle footage over and over again. "Explain to me," Thaxmer growled at his intelligence chief, "how 3 primitive patrol boats destroyed 8 of our warships." Colonel Nexvar shifted nervously in his seat. "Our analysis suggests the humans have developed adaptive technology that learns from combat engagement. Their shields and weapons modify themselves during battle." "Impossible," snapped Admiral Corthul, the Empire's most decorated fleet commander. "No species developed such advanced systems in their first century of space travel. They must have stolen the technology from someone else." Thaxmer studied the battle recordings again. The human commander Blake had been calm throughout the entire fight, as if he expected to win. That bothered the Drakmori general more than the military defeat itself. "Assemble the Grand Fleet," Thaxmer ordered. 200 ships, including my personal dreadnought. We will show these humans what happens when they defy the Empire. On Earth, President Ben Taylor met with his military advisors in the underground bunker beneath the White House. The room hummed with activity as officers analyzed data from the new Denver battle. "The Drakmori will return with everything they have," Admiral Lisa Carter reported. "Our intelligence suggests they're mobilizing their entire available fleet." Dr. Paul Kim, head of Earth's Weapons Development Program, looked up from his tablet. "The good news is that we've learned as much from this battle as they have, maybe more." "Explain," President Taylor said. "The Drakmori follow standard military doctrine from their previous conquests," Kim replied. "They use overwhelming force in direct frontal attacks. But their weapons and tactics haven't changed in decades. They rely on superior numbers and firepower." Colonel Kate Mitchell, who commanded Earth's secret construction projects, activated a wall display. "Sir, we've been preparing for this possibility for 3 years. The automated manufacturing stations are ready." The display showed dozens of hidden facilities throughout human space. What looked like asteroid mining operations and research stations were actually massive shipyards capable of producing warships in record time. "How many ships can we have ready?" the president asked. 50 combat vessels within 2 weeks, Mitchell replied. "But they won't be traditional ships. We're using everything we learned from studying alien technology." 2 weeks later, the Drakmori Grand Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Liberty Prime system, humanity's most important core world. General Thaxmer stood on the bridge of his dreadnought Dominion's fist, confident that this time the outcome would be different. 200 ships against a handful of human defenders, he said to Admiral Corthul. "This will be over quickly." But as the Drakmori fleet moved toward Liberty Prime, they encountered something no intelligence report had prepared them for. The entire star system had been turned into a fortress. Every asteroid had weapons platforms built into it. Space stations bristled with defensive systems. Even the orbital factories around Liberty Prime were armed and ready for battle. "How many defensive positions are we detecting?" Thaxmer demanded. "Over 3,000 separate installations," reported the sensor officer, his voice shaking. "The humans have militarized everything in this system." Captain Rick Stone commanded the human flagship New Horizon, leading a fleet of 50 ships. That looked unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human vessels were smaller than Drakmori warships, but moved in perfect coordination, sharing information through quantum communication links. "All ships execute Formation Delta," Stone ordered calmly. "Remember, we're not trying to match their firepower. We're going to be smarter." The battle began when the Drakmori fleet opened fire on the outer defensive positions. But instead of fixed fortifications, they found themselves shooting at mobile platforms that dodged and weaved through space. Human engineers had mounted weapons on asteroid chunks and given them basic propulsion systems. They turned rocks into warships, Admiral Corthul said in amazement. The human fleet attacked in small groups, never staying in one place long enough for the Drakmori to focus their firepower. Each group had a specific mission: disable enemy sensors, target weapon systems, or jam communication arrays. The humans fought like a pack of wolves against a herd of large, slow animals. Lieutenant Colonel Dan Murphy led a boarding party onto a damaged Drakmori cruiser. His troops moved through the alien ship with practiced efficiency, using portable devices that interface directly with Drakmori computer systems. "We're downloading their tactical database," Murphy reported to Captain Stone. "Should have complete fleet movement patterns in 10 minutes. This was the human advantage that no alien species had encountered before. Humans didn't just fight to destroy their enemies. They fought to understand them completely. Every battle became a learning experience that made the next battle easier. General Thaxmer watched his formation fall apart as human. Ships seemed to predict every tactical decision. His communications officer reported that several ships had lost contact entirely. "Sir, the humans have infiltrated our command network," the officer said, with panic in his voice. "They're accessing our battle plans in real time." "How is that possible?" Thaxmer roared. The answer was simple but terrifying. Human computer specialists had studied captured Drakmori technology for months. They understood alien systems better than the aliens did, and they had developed ways to hack into any network during combat. Captain Stone smiled as tactical data flowed across his screens. The human AI systems were not just adapting to Drakmori tactics, they were predicting them. Every move the enemy made played directly into human battle plans. "Enemy flagship is moving to attack position," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Williams. "Let them come," Stone replied. "We want General Thaxmer to get a close look at what humans can do." The Dominion's fist, pride of the Drakmori fleet, found itself surrounded by smaller human ships that moved like angry insects. Their weapons couldn't hit targets that changed direction every few seconds, while human missiles struck with pinpoint accuracy. Colonel Murphy's boarding parties had taken control of 6 Drakmori ships from the inside. The alien crews found themselves fighting enemies who knew their own ships better than they did. "General," Admiral Corthul said desperately, "we've lost 60% of the fleet. The humans are using tactics we've never encountered." Thaxmer stared at the tactical display in horror. His mighty fleet was being torn apart by an enemy that seemed to know exactly what he would do before he did it. The humans weren't just winning. They were teaching him that everything he thought he knew about warfare was wrong. "Signal general retreat," he ordered, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. As the surviving Drakmori ships fled toward the edge of the system, Captain Stone opened a communication channel. "General Thaxmer, this is Captain Stone. We're still willing to discuss peace terms whenever you're ready." The Drakmori general's image appeared on screen, his face showing defeat and confusion. "What are you humans?" Stone's expression remained calm but serious. "We're the species you should have listened to warnings about. Ambassador Zeftai tried to tell you. We don't want to conquer anyone, but we won't let anyone conquer us either." The transmission ended. General Thaxmer's dreadnought limped away from Liberty Prime, carrying news of another impossible defeat back to the Empire. Behind them, the human fleet began salvage operations, collecting alien technology and battle data that would make them even more dangerous. In the depths of space, other alien civilizations monitored the battle through long-range sensors. Word began to spread throughout the galaxy that the Drakmori Empire, conquerors of 47 star systems, had been defeated twice by a species barely 100 years old. The humans had proven that they could defend themselves. Now the galaxy waited to see what they would do next. 3 days after the battle at Liberty Prime, President Ben Taylor stood before the Earth's Global Defense Council. The room was filled with military leaders from every human colony and nation. On the main screen, reports showed Drakmori forces retreating deeper into their own territory. "The question before us is simple," President Taylor said. "Do we defend our borders and wait for the next attack, or do we end this threat permanently?" General Frank Adams, newly promoted to head of Human Expeditionary Forces, stood up. "Sir, our intelligence shows the Drakmori Empire is preparing to mobilize every ship they have. If we wait, they'll come back with 1,000 vessels." Admiral Carter nodded in agreement. "The Drakmori have conquered 47 star systems. They have resources we can't match in a long war. Our advantage is speed and surprise." Dr. Paul Kim activated a holographic display showing the Drakmori Empire's territory. "We've analyzed their military structure. They depend on central command and supply lines. If we can disrupt their ability to coordinate attacks, their individual fleets become much weaker." President Taylor studied the display carefully. "What are you proposing?" "Operation Starfall," General Adams replied. "We strike their key military installations, supply depots, and communication centers, not to conquer territory, but to cripple their ability to wage war." Colonel Kate Mitchell added, "Our automated shipyards can produce ships faster than they can. We hit them before they realize how many vessels we can build." The president looked around the room at his advisors. "Are we certain this is the right choice? Once we cross into their territory, there's no going back." "Sir," Admiral Carter said quietly, "they attacked our colonies first. They won't stop until they're stopped. The galaxy needs to see that aggression against peaceful species has consequences." President Taylor nodded slowly. "Operation Starfall is approved, but remember, we're not conquerors. We disable their military, not destroy their people." 2 weeks later, human fleets began appearing throughout Drakmori space. The attacks came simultaneously across dozens of systems, coordinated through quantum communication networks that the Drakmori couldn't intercept or jam. Captain Tony Garcia commanded a special operations unit aboard the stealth ship Shadowrunner. His mission was to infiltrate the main Drakmori communication center on Vex Prime, the Empire's intelligence headquarters. "Approaching target," reported his pilot, Lieutenant Beth Parker. "Drakmori patrols are following predictable patterns." "Just like our analysis suggested," Garcia smiled. Human intelligence teams had spent months studying Drakmori military procedures. Every patrol route, every shift change, every security protocol was mapped and memorized. The Shadowrunner slipped past the orbital defenses using stealth, technology reverse-engineered from captured alien ships. But the humans had improved on the original design, making their vessels nearly invisible to Drakmori sensors. On the surface of Vex Prime, Garcia's team moved through the communication center like ghosts. They planted small devices that would give human computers access to the entire Drakmori military network. "Package delivered," Garcia reported. "We now have eyes and ears on every Drakmori fleet movement." Meanwhile, Dr. Helen Price worked in a secret laboratory on Europa, Jupiter's moon. Her team had developed something that would change the nature of warfare itself. Weapons designed specifically to fight Drakmori biology. "The neural disruptor is ready for field testing," she told General Adams through a secure video link. "It affects Drakmori brain chemistry, causing temporary paralysis without permanent damage." "Temporary?" Adams asked. "They recover completely within 6 hours," Price explained. "We're not trying to commit genocide. We want them to surrender, not die." This was the key difference between human warfare and what the galaxy had seen before. Humans fought to win, but they also fought to preserve the possibility of peace afterward. Captain Rick Stone led the main assault fleet toward the Drakmori, military world of Corinth 7. His ships moved in formation, but not the formations any alien species would recognize. Human tactics had evolved beyond traditional space warfare. "Enemy fleet detected," reported Lieutenant Sarah Williams. 43 Drakmori vessels moving to intercept. "Let them come," Stone replied. "Execute." Plan Sigma. The human ships scattered in what looked like panic, but was actually a carefully planned maneuver. Each vessel headed toward a different target, forcing the Drakmori to split their forces to pursue them. As the alien ships chased the humans, they discovered too late that they were being led into a trap. Human vessels that had seemed to flee suddenly turned and attacked from unexpected angles. Drakmori commanders found themselves fighting battles they couldn't predict or control. On the Drakmori homeworld, General Faxmer received reports of attacks throughout the Empire. Every message brought worse news. Human forces were striking at targets the Drakmori had thought were completely secure. "How are they moving so fast?" he demanded of his intelligence chief. "How do they know where to attack?" Colonel Nexvar looked at his reports with growing fear. "Sir, it appears they have complete access to our communication networks. They know our troop movements before our own commanders do." The truth was even more disturbing. Human computer specialists had not just hacked into Drakmori systems. They had taken control of them. Every message the Drakmori sent to coordinate their defenses was intercepted, analyzed, and countered before it could be acted upon. Captain Garcia's infiltration teams had done their work perfectly. Human forces could predict Drakmori movements because they were reading the enemy's orders in real-time. In the Arcturus system, Commander Jake Morrison led an attack on a major Drakmori supply depot. But instead of destroying the facility, his forces captured it intact, along with all the supplies and equipment stored there. "Why are we taking prisoners?" asked his tactical officer, Lieutenant Mike Cooper. Morrison smiled. "Because prisoners can be exchanged for peace treaties. Dead enemies can't negotiate." The human strategy was working perfectly. Drakmori forces found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once, knew their every move, and used weapons specifically designed to counter their biology and technology. But the most disturbing aspect for the Drakmori was that humans didn't fight like conquerors. They fought like teachers, showing the Empire's forces exactly why their methods wouldn't work anymore. General Faxmer stood in his command center, watching the tactical display as red markers showed human attacks across the Empire. In 3 weeks, they had lost more territory than in any previous conflict. "Sir," his aide reported nervously, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. They want to discuss terms." Faxmer straightened his uniform. For the first time in his military career, he was going to have to negotiate from a position of weakness. "Put them through," he said. President Taylor's image appeared on the screen, flanked by Admiral Carter and General Adams. The human leader looked calm but determined. "General Faxmer," Taylor said, "I believe it's time we talked about ending this war." The Drakmori general stared at the human president, realizing that everything he thought he knew about warfare had been proven wrong by his species. Less than 2 centuries old, Ambassador FT's warning had been more accurate than anyone imagined. The humans weren't just dangerous when provoked, they were revolutionary. The crystal halls of Zarian Prime looked different now. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered once again, but this time the human delegation sat at the center table. President Ben Taylor walked into the chamber, flanked by Admiral Lisa Carter and General Frank Adams, their presence commanding respect from species that had once ignored them. Ambassador Zeftai watched from his seat as the humans took their place. The old Velkari had lived long enough to see his warnings come true in ways no one could have predicted. The Drakmori Empire once the galaxy's most feared military force, was now asking for peace terms. General Faxmer entered the chamber differently than before. His armor showed battle damage, and his forearms moved with the careful motions of someone who had learned painful lessons. The proud conqueror of 47 star systems now looked like a soldier who had met his match. The Galactic Council recognizes President Taylor of the Human Federation, announced the session moderator, Counselor Ythara of the Andrian Federation. President Taylor stood up slowly, his eyes moving across the assembled representatives. Thank you, Counselor. 6 months ago, Ambassador Zeftai warned this council about humanity. Today, we're here to discuss why that warning was both right and wrong. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many species had monitored the war between humans and Drakmori, watching in amazement as the younger species systematically dismantled one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. The ambassador was right that humans are dangerous when provoked. Taylor continued, but he was wrong about what we would do with that danger. We didn't come here as conquerors. Admiral Carter activated a holographic display showing the current state of former Drakmori territory. Instead of human occupation forces, the display showed something unprecedented: mixed fleets of human and alien vessels working together to maintain peace. In the past month, we have returned control of 37 conquered worlds to their original inhabitants, Admiral Carter reported. The Drakmori Empire took these systems by force. We are giving them back through choice. The chamber fell silent. No species in galactic history had ever conquered territory just to give it away, Dr. Helen Price, now serving as humanity's chief science advisor, stood up next. We have also shared our defensive technologies with 12 species that were previously under Drakmori control. They now have the tools to protect themselves from future aggression. General Faxmer shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The humans had not just defeated his empire. They had made his former victims strong enough to resist any future conquest attempts. What are your terms for peace? Faxmer asked, his voice rough with exhaustion. President Taylor looked directly at the Drakmori general. Our terms are simple. The Drakmori Empire formally renounces aggressive expansion. You provide reparations to your former victims. And you submit to monitoring by a neutral peacekeeping force. And if we refuse? Faxmer asked. General Adams spoke for the first time. Then we continue our current operations until you agree. But we'd rather have you as partners in keeping the peace than as enemies we have to watch constantly. The human approach shocked many council members. They offered the Drakmori a choice between cooperation and continued defeat, but they clearly preferred cooperation. Ambassador Zeftai requested permission to speak. President Taylor, may I ask what humanity hopes to gain from this approach? Your species has proven it can take whatever it wants by force. Taylor smiled, the expression both warm and determined. Ambassador, what we want is something that can't be taken by force. We want a galaxy where no species has to fear conquest, where disputes are settled by negotiation instead of warfare, where technology is shared for mutual benefit instead of hoarded for military advantage. The president activated another display showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. Our people explore space to learn and grow, not to dominate. But we've learned that peaceful species need protection from those who choose violence. Captain Rick Stone, now promoted to Admiral, entered the chamber carrying a datapad. President, I have an update on the peacekeeping fleet status. Proceed, Admiral. We now have integrated crews from 15 different species serving on human vessels. Former Drakmori officers have volunteered to help train these crews in defensive tactics. The fleet is fully operational and ready for peacekeeping missions. This announcement caused excited discussion throughout the chamber. The idea of former enemies working together in a single fleet was revolutionary. Counselor Yathara raised her hand. How can the Council be certain that humanity won't use this peacekeeping force for conquest? Admiral Carter answered. Because every ship in the fleet has mixed crews. No single species controls any vessel completely. And our computer systems are programmed to prevent offensive operations against civilian targets. Dr. Paul Kim added, we've also established joint research stations where human and alien scientists work together. Our weapons technology will be shared with the peacekeeping force, but only for defensive purposes. General Faxmer looked around the chamber, seeing representatives from species his empire had once conquered. Many of them now sat as equals, protected by human defensive technology and supported by human guarantees of independence. I accept the terms, he said finally. The Drakmori Empire will join this peacekeeping alliance. The chamber erupted in surprised conversations. No one had expected the proud Drakmori to agree so quickly. President Taylor nodded respectfully. General, your empire has strong military traditions. We hope you'll help us train the peacekeeping forces. Who better to teach defensive tactics than someone who understands how attackers think? This final offer seemed to restore some of Faxmer's dignity. Instead of being a defeated enemy, he was being invited to become a partner in maintaining galactic security. Ambassador Zeftai stood up slowly, his ancient form moving with careful grace. The Velkari archives record only 3 previous instances of such rapid civilizational advancement. In each case, the species that achieved this advancement became a stabilizing force for centuries. The old diplomat paused, looking directly at President Taylor. I believe humanity represents the beginning of a new age in galactic civilization. An age where strength serves peace instead of conquest. The treaty signing took place 3 hours later. Representatives from 43 species added their names to the document establishing the Galactic Peacekeeping Alliance. The Drakmori Empire became the 44th signatory dot as the ceremony concluded. General Faxmer approached President Taylor privately. I have one question, human. You could have destroyed my empire completely. Why didn't you? Taylor considered the question carefully. Because destroyed enemies can't become friends. And we'd rather have friends than subjects. 6 months later, Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the peacekeeping vessel Unity, watching as his mixed crew of humans, Drakmori, Velkari, and Andreans worked together to respond to a distress call from a remote system. The ship itself was a symbol of the new galaxy, human design enhanced with the best technology from dozens of species. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, a former Drakmori commander named Sub-General Korthak. We're receiving thanks from the colonists. The pirates have been driven off without casualties. Stone smiled. Good work, everyone. Set course for home base. As the Unity jumped to faster-than-light travel, its mixed crew began preparing reports for the Galactic Council. The peacekeeping force had responded to 47 calls for help in 6 months, and not a single situation had required lethal force dot in the depths of space. Other species watched and learned. The galaxy had discovered that humans, when provoked, didn't just fight to win. They fought to make fighting unnecessary.